Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Drive Thru FM. It has been a hot minute since I put out anything on this channel, a little bit over 3 months. What started as kind of a working vacation turned into a little bit of a YouTube break. I don't really want to bore everybody with like life stuff, but some life stuff went on. Nothing major, nothing, no emergencies, no health issues, that kind of stuff. Just a lot of stuff going on. Work was busy, lots of other things too. Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to bore. I honestly don't want to bore anybody. It was kind of an unintentional break over the last however long, many years I've been doing this, 13, 14 years almost. I've taken 2 breaks, just because, 14 years is a long time to be doing something like this, and especially if it's not my job, you know what I mean? So this kind of turned into one of those breaks, but wasn't planned, whereas those other ones, were planned. So anyway, I apologize for the little break and interruption and everything. Because of this break, and kind of generally my not typical rate of playing games, I'm not going to do a best of video for this year. I've got a lot of stuff kind of like in the hopper that I've played that I'm going to talk about on this podcast, like in terms of just doing kind of minor reviews and stuff, and a couple other little topics to talk about here. But a couple of these that I'm going to mention, I kind of want to play another time or two. And also, I got a couple other games that I haven't actually gotten around to be playing, with the holidays and other things. And I really want to play them because I've seen them. I kind of suspected they would, honestly, but I've also seen them show up on top 10 lists. I'm like, yeah, I had a good feeling about that one. There was a lot of buzz about, whatever game. One game, for example, is the Duel for Middle-earth, the Lord of the Rings ones. I've got it sitting there. I haven't played it at all. I just haven't had the opportunity to sit down and do a 2-player game, and I've read the rules twice, and I've just been sitting there. I've been wanting to play it, and I'm like, man, this looks really good. So I won't do a best of. I might do a best of here like in January, maybe even early February, to give myself a little bit more time to kind of go back and review stuff and look at things a little bit more closely. I've got a list of like 10 games already. But I'm looking at the list, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to get replaced by this, when I get to play this more and stuff like that. So anyway, that'll be coming. So what this video / podcast is going to do is I'm going to talk about a couple of games I've been playing online almost exclusively. I'll just kind of give a shout out there to some fun online games. And talk a little bit about JRPG video games for a minute. I just want to touch base on that. I mentioned that a couple of like podcasts ago. I just want to talk a little bit about that briefly because I've been playing a lot of those this year, and I have some thoughts about maybe doing some videos on them, and I kind of wanted to open it up for feedback a little bit. I'm going to do something on it. I just don't know what it's going to take, or what form it's going to take. And then we're going to get into review. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. Okay, well, they'll be quick reviews. That's 9 games that could go on for a while. So I'm going to try to keep this about an hour or so. And kind of get my feet wet again, and then hopefully get some reviews done here after the first of the year, that kind of stuff. Anyway, so Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah is going on right now as I'm talking, and Happy New Year here in a couple of days. Probably, maybe when this gets live, it'll be the New Year, or it'll be just before, I think. So let's go ahead and take a little break, a little musical break, and then we'll jump in to talk about a couple of online board games that I've been playing quite a bit over the last few months, and I just want to kind of give a quick shout out to those and recommendations for those. Okay, and we're back. And so First thing I want to mention here is a couple of really cool online implementations of games. I play a lot of Board Game Arena, and I don't play so much Tabletop Simulator anymore. I think I used to play that back when like the pandemic was a thing, you know. But I get more and more enough real time FaceTime, value that Tabletop Simulator doesn't really do it. But even my local group and I and others we'll still play Board Game Arena all the time. We've right now got a at least one Arc Nova game going that I'm in, and I've usually got a game of that going. And lately, Fromage and whatever, or Lost Ruins of Arnak is a good one that we always have going on there that we go back to. And so yeah, that's been good stuff. And really have just enjoyed having that as kind of a gap fill, so to speak. I said gap fill. That sounds like a very corporate word. Sorry. It's my gaming gap fill. Jeez. Anyway. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Altered TCG, which is on Board Game Arena, and have just had a blast playing that on there. And I talked about, I think the last piece of content I did on the channel was a review for Altered, which I really enjoyed. And I've really enjoyed even more because as of now, I can't remember where it was at the state of this during the review time of this for me. But now you can go and build decks with the app, and you can like sync your app to Board Game Arena, and then you can play with those decks. And that's just been really, really cool. I mean, absolutely love doing that. And it works well. The deck building piece in the app is really cool. It's really easy to use. It's very easy to kind of tinker with decks, and it like immediately syncs up to Board Game Arena, and then you can just play right on there. And the interface on Board Game Arena is just beautiful. It works fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. Now, the only kind of caveat here is I haven't really heard much about Altered from anybody. Asmodee or whoever the main publisher was, I can't remember their name. Which is tell you something, because I haven't gotten no emails or nothing saying like, oh, our next set's coming out or this feature's coming out or anything. Since they went live with the app and the Board Game Arena stuff, which I think has been really successful, I mean, executed anyway, I haven't really heard much. So, it's one of these things with these TCGs, they kind of come and go. But anyway, if you pick up a couple of booster packs or some starter decks and stuff like that, I recommend trying it on Board Game Arena. I think the game is excellent. I think it's really kind of a nice, interesting, kind of alternate take on the head-to-head card game. But yeah, I would recommend folks at least take a look at it again. And if you haven't seen my review, go back and watch it. I think it's a pretty good breakdown of the game and everything. So should be pretty informative to you. So that's the first one to talk about is Altered. And the next one is, I think I feel a little bit bad about this, but I think it's either still an alpha or beta on Board Game Arena, but it's just kind of something to be looking out for. Like I said, my group plays a lot of that. We've played it so much that we have at least one or two people that are even in the alpha group. You've got to play like a certain number of games, a certain number of different games and that kind of thing, and then you get accepted after a while, and then you can invite your friends and stuff. So I think once you get invited to an alpha game of something by an alpha person, then you can invite others to play. So anyway, all that being said, I've been playing a ton of the Jest of Robin Hood on Board Game Arena, and it works really well in there, and I love it. It's been fantastic. I mean, it really is. I'll just say this now because, it doesn't matter that much. This is right now my game of the year, Jest of Robin Hood. I think I'd be hard pressed for it to get replaced at this point. Like I said, I still got a bunch of stuff to play, but man, I really like it. It's one of my favorite coin style games. It's not really a coin game, but it's pretty dang close to one, and it's just such a great little cat and mouse game. I've been playing it with we'll call him Billy. His name's not Billy, but I've been playing it with Billy a little bit. I think we played it about 6 or 7 times back to back there a couple of months ago. And just had some really great, exciting nail biter finishes with it. That it just went either, it could come down to a dice roll or a certain sort of order of the card flip, And we both got so like, in tune with the game that we're like, this is, okay, you did this, I did this. Is this going to come down to this? And it's great because it's, you kind of feel like you both played as best as you could play, as best as you could possibly play. And it's just going to come down to a chance. And so that's a good feeling actually, because, the outcome is one thing, but the game's kind of letting you know that like, hey, you did the best you could and you've optimized this system as best you could. And just being in tune with that, playing with like one other person most of the time and kind of, testing each other's tendencies. It's been really interesting because not only have we had, those close games that come down to like that final card flip or that final dice roll. We kind of started playing mind games with each other. There was one game particularly where, I mean, this happened like 2 months ago, so forgive me, but where my friend there, he did some completely out of bounds strategy, and I was like completely not prepared for it and reacted so poorly to it and just overcompensated for what he had done that actually ended up costing me the game because he did something so dramatically different. And I think in my review, I might have mentioned some of that. It's a little bit hazy for me, forgive me, but not to plug my review again, but that's okay. There's a lot of interesting stuff sort of spatially, dynamically on the map with kind of like the corridors of the routes that you send the carriages in and that kind of stuff that you can play with. And he did something kind of, at least for our little metagame, kind of out of bounds. And it was really cool. And then I was like, oh crap, and totally overcompensated and realized, oh, I just totally overreacted to this. And he kind of bluffed me out of my shoes. And so that was cool though. That was kind of fun to see that kind of situation where, you can get these games where somebody does something sort of quirky and distinct, and then the game will be kind of a blowout. And then the next game, you kind of account for that in your little personal meta game. And then it'll be a really close game and come down to the last die roll. So that's really fun. So anyway, look for that coming out on Board Game Arena. If you haven't picked up the game yet from GMT, I think it's still in print. I don't know. I think it's sold out pretty well. But if you can, take a look at that. It's really cool. It's a good introduction to coin in a way. Kind of. I mean, if that was your first coin game, I think it's like, simple enough and elegant enough that it's going to be easy to get into. But then if you jump to something else, it's not going to be really anything like it. So it might be like a false positive kind of thing. You might go, oh, I love Robin Hood, and then go, I don't know, buy Andy and Abyss and be like, this is totally different. Some mechanical similarities. But anyway, that's a good one regardless. And the next one to talk about is, I think this is also in beta, and I'll just talk about this one briefly, as the 51st State, and they have the Ultimate Edition stuff in there with the new cards and everything and the refined cards. And that's another one that we played a few games of recently over the last month or two, and good implementation on Board Game Arena. It just works really well. It's one of my favorite games out of that sort of 51st State, Imperial Settlers, that whole kind of world of line from Portal, from their card games and stuff. And so it's cool to see one like that because it's one that I really like to just kind of play here and there. It's the funny thing about some of these card games is it's kind of hard to get them played at a game night, sort of, because we want to play like the new hot board game, which is cool. But then I always kind of want to play these card games like 51st State, San Juan, Race for the Galaxy. I just want to play them like here and there, like, to be like late at night, 8 o'clock at night, stuff's wind down for the day. I'm like, man, I really could use a good card game right now before I go to bed, that kind of thing. And having like a really good game like 51st State up there is cool. And I like to just be able to kind of scratch that itch. So it's going to be good that is available more readily for players on Board Game Arena. I'm not sure. I think it's still in beta though. Anyway, another one to look out for. So I apologize that you can't play it right now, but look out for it. It's going to be cool when it comes out. The last sort of online game I want to talk about is a roller coaster here, is the Codenames app. Now, this is not free in any way, shape, or form. I think it was like $2 or $3. I got it on my phone, my iPhone, and this was probably a little over a month ago. I think it was towards the end of October when it came out, and I played the absolute heck out of it. man, but I burned out after about 2 weeks of it. I just burned the heck out of it because it was too much. Like, so this is the thing. Codenames, the app, is one of the most amazing board game app online whatever implementations I've ever played. Easily. It's so cool what they did. But I think the one drawback to it is it like gives you too much to do. So it's kind of one of those where you get like a daily quest kind of thing. After you get in and you play the tutorial, you play some games maybe against your friends, play some online games with some random people, do some of their little like mini games and stuff like that. It just like overwhelms you with notifications and stuff to do. Like, oh, it's your turn to do this now. Because you can play like against an AI, and it has like this other thing where it'll give you like tasks in the day, and it'll give you like a little puzzle, and it'll give you, in code names you get a word and you got to associate that with three other words. And when you first play the game, you're playing like as the player, and it has this pre-canned stuff to kind of slowly introduce you to the app and all the different modes and the functions. And that's good. Okay, cool. It's animal, and you see like, okay, there's a giraffe and an eagle and da da da, whatever. But then it slowly starts to unlock for you the ability to create those puzzles yourself. So it'll give you like a layout of words, and then you have to come up with like, okay, animal 3 and send it. And then other players in the world, that will be their daily tasks. So slowly, you start to unlock that, and you become like kind of the game master. And then you get rewarded because it'll give you like a report on how well people did it with your puzzle. So if you can get like, exactly those numbers, or how many people got stuff wrong. And so you try to really, think about the clues that you want to give. And I love that. That was really neat. You get a report back and it's like, oh man, I screwed everybody up here, and they got, I didn't score that high as the clue giver. Or those instances where you get like perfect, it's like you get like the gold little, medallion in the app, and you feel really good about yourself. And then, playing online games against random people. I was playing with my friends a whole bunch, and it was really cool that way. Had multiple games going. And then kind of slowly after a while, because it gives you like these sort of solo single player tasks, and I'd turn my app on and I'd be like, you have like 15 things to do. And I'm like, what? And then I was like, okay, cool. And I go through them, and I'm like, man, I'm burned out. And I was like, I just burned out after 2 weeks. I was just raving. All of my friends, we were all raving. It's like, this is the greatest thing. It's so cool. Like, just all the different modes and ways to play the game. And then I was like, man, I'm done. It was too much. I couldn't devote my life to Codenames the app. So it was interesting. So I recommend, it's worth the $2 or $3 or whatever it is to play. And it might be something that I go and revisit at some point, but I don't know. I mean, we played the heck out of the real game years ago when it came out, and but it's cool. Like, I recommend people can at least try it, because it'll give you a good solid week or two or whatever of fun out of the app, and it's definitely worth the couple of dollars easily. Okay, let's just stick here for a minute. We won't take a musical break. I just want to talk about some JRPG type of things. I think I mentioned this probably on the last podcast or the one before that. I talked about how I'd been playing a lot of JRPGs and stuff. So I went back and looked at my like Steam history and stuff, and I started playing these games in February of this year, about the middle of the month. And so coming up here almost on a year of really playing through these games, and I've been kind of keeping track of stuff and taking notes and things. And I finished, I think it's like 24 games, and played a good chunk more. And there's a couple that I played for like 40 and 60 hours that I said, screw this, and shut the game down, because they kind of pissed me off with bad design, in my opinion. And so I kind of want to like do a long video talking about all of these. And there's probably a couple that I'll have finished here in the next couple of weeks, maybe. But I also kind of want to like review them in a little bit more proper form, because I don't know, like during this rabbit hole of kind of falling into this world, I've noticed some really cool YouTube channels that are kind of dedicated to very specifically JRPGs, and that's different than like a I think the classification would be CRPG, like a computer role playing game versus Japanese role playing game. Most of the ones I've been playing, they actually come out of Japan. So I think there's a little bit of wiggly, I don't know, controversy. I don't really care, but about that because I don't know. All the ones I play start in Japan, so I'm just gonna stick to JRPG. Um, but there's some really good channels anyway devoted to that. But I don't. There's not a lot, and I hope I don't like want to be one of these interloper jerks that comes in and says, "Oh, none of these media people are doing it right." But I don't see a lot of people talking about like the game design part of it, and I think some of these are very interesting and excellent from a game design point of view, like how they kind of stage out like the character development and the leveling up and the bosses and all that stuff and the story and stuff like that. And some of these is really cool. And some of them are lighter on the story, and some of them are just like horrifically, aggravatingly bad in some ways, and they, depends on the game. Like some of them like won't get out of their own way, and some of them do really, really well. And they're all turn-based. Most of them. I do like some of the action RPGs too, but most of these games I'm talking about are turn-based, which kind of fits in the board game world. And I don't really see some of these game design sort of principles, I guess you would say, the mechanics probably wouldn't translate to the board game world, but there's some interesting kind of discussion there, I think, on some of this, on the parts that these things do really, really well, like amazing, and some things that they don't do well. I think just from a pure game design perspective, like how fun is it? How well does it lead along the player and get them to get to the destination where I think the game designers intend you to get to, that kind of stuff. So, I think at the very least, I'll probably do some kind of big old video talking about all these games, because it'll probably be 26, 27 games that I've finished, by a month from now, let's say. But I kind of want to go in and dive into some of these too, because in retrospect, looking back on the year, there's some interesting stuff here with just how this stuff works, and I think it would be informative to probably a small niche of board gamers and people like in that world, because you think of like some of these campaign games and stuff like that, or just not even campaign games, but like a boss fighter things like Cthulhu Death May Die or Oathsworn or Kingdom Death Monster. That's kind of the thing that I think was mostly like a JRPG, where you kind of do some stuff a little bit on the side, but it's really just to punctuate your boss fights, which in some JRPGs, that's all they really end up being. And sometimes they do a better job than just that. So I think there's some interesting discussion to have there. So I just kind of, I may either just do one video, or I might do a series of reviews. I might review some series. Just to give you a taste of it, I mean, this year I played every single Ys game. Now, it's an action RPG, but I played every Ys game from Origin 1 and 2 all the way to the one that just came out a month or two ago, Ys 10. I played 4 of the Trails games. I'm on the 5th one. I'll probably finish that one pretty quickly. And I'm all the way up to Trails of Azure, if you guys don't know what this is, but some of you might. So I'm going to probably start Trails of Cold Steel. I did all the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. Some of those I'd played, when I was younger. I did like Phantasy Star. I did the new Dragon Quest III remake. I played Persona, Shin Megami Tensei 3. Then I'm right now playing Metaphor ReFantazio, which is another Persona, Shin Megami kind of, style game. What else did I play this year? I played Eden. I don't know how to pronounce this. Eden Chronicles 100 Heroes. That was really cool. Yeah, some others in here to sprinkle in here. Secret of Mana remake. Anyway, so I could probably do like a review on each series in a way, that kind of thing. And some of them, these I bounced the heck off of. Like I went back and tried Final Fantasy X again. I want to stab that game in the eyeball. Anyway, and some of the other newer Final Fantasies I tried, because I went through the Pixel Masters mostly successfully, and I tried to play some of the ones later. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so there's some other games in there to talk about. I just open it up for people to kind of give their feedback. I'm not really sure what I want to do right now. I need to jump back in and get some board game reviews done, kind of thing. So just to kind of get my little content creator whistle wet again. I hate all those words that just came out of my mouth, but anyway, it's all right. So anyway, I just wanted to open that up and let people kind of stew on it. And if you have interest, I mean, if you don't have interest, like just don't say anything because the content won't be for you. Um, and if you do have interest, though, I'm curious, like what your thoughts on what a good format might be, or just some discussion to have on it. And yeah. Okay, so we'll just take a quick little break for music, and then I'll come back and review relatively quickly 9 different games. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And we're going to go ahead and just jump into some reviews. These are kind of ordered in no particular order, I guess. Kind of like from weak to strength, but none of these are weak. This is not one of these like, oh, Joel's putting a negative review in the podcast types of things. It's just, I played a lot of games recently. Haven't had a chance to make reviews for some of these. Some of these will get a full review. So I'll probably talk less about those. And then, we'll save some of it for the review. Some of it will be like first impressions, that kind of thing. But I will say that none of the games on this list that I dislike at all. I may have some criticisms, but I think generally I liked all these games. So let's jump in with the first one. This will be Forest Shuffle. This is a brand new card game, kind of in the vein of like Earth or Wingspan, sort of. Not really, but it's kind of one of these earthy, naturey types of card games. But I think it sets itself apart from those other games that I mentioned. And I would say, I think out of those games that I mentioned, this is probably my favorite. I want to play more of it. I want to play it with an expansion. I think at the end of the day, I feel like this game is good, but I think it does need the expansion. I don't remember if the expansion is out yet or not, but it is coming. If not, and I think it would be really well served by just a little bit more variety in the card pool. Now, the one thing that's interesting about the game, if you've not heard of it, is it's a card game, and you basically are playing like trees and then critters and other little naturey plants and berries and stuff like that around the trees. So you have the tree cards that go, you put it down in front of you, and then you have these cards that are either split in half, like left and right, or top to bottom. You think of like the dual land cards in Magic. If you ever played with those, I don't even know if they still have those in Magic. But so you end up tucking the cards either on the top, the bottom, the left, or right of the tree, and then they'll do different combos. So like it'll say if you have one of these predators and then you have at least one of these other type of deer, you're going to score 10 points for that. Or you might collect like a set of like frogs or fireflies or insects and different things like that. And or you might want to collect certain different types of trees, and so that's what it is. And you kind of just either draw from like a display of cards or draw them off the deck and play cards, and that's all you do. And you go round and round till you get through the deck, and you have these winter cards come up. And once I think the third or fourth one comes up, then it'll end the game, and everybody will just score up there at the end of the game based on all the little combos you have. And there's also like different types, little icons on the cards where to play a card, you've got to discard cards to pay for it. And if you discard the types that kind of match, then you can get little bonuses, sometimes like take extra turns or draw extra cards and whatever, score extra points or something. Anyway, you get to do extra stuff. It's really cool, and it's really fun and pretty straightforward and basic-ish, and there's a lot to kind of explore with it. And it's just a lot of fun. And I think it works really well. And I think, I don't remember how many times I played it. I think 4, maybe. And different player counts. Never 2, though. Always 3 and 4. And it's been good. I really like it. Like I said, I kind of feel like it needs an expansion just to kind of flesh things out a little bit more for it to stick around. But it's a fun game. And I think it's worth picking up just for what it is now. You might just have a limited table time with it. All right, that was the first one, for Shuffle. And this next one is called Harmonies. And this is kind of like an abstract game, also nature themed in a way, where it's kind of like Azul, if you played Azul, where you drafting like little colored discs off these little dishes, and you grab all of them, and you've got to figure out where to put them on your player board. And there's like green ones, gray ones, brown ones, and they represent like nature things. So you have like wood, and green would be trees and stone, but you also have red ones that are buildings and yellow ones that are fields. And so you're drafting them and kind of arranging them. You can also stack them on top of each other to make little different shapes on your board. But then there's also these cards which will show you little patterns. So you might have a card that has a pattern of like, two little fields, like yellows, and then in a line. And then at the end of the line is a little tree that is one tree high, or two high. So you might have a brown with a green on top to show you kind of like a certain height of tree. And so you arrange these things on your little hex grid. And so you can maybe score the bonuses on that card multiple times. And then you can get other cards. So part of your turn is you're always picking a set of these colored tokens to put down, but you also might be also completing the bonuses on the cards or drafting new cards from the display to score. So you're trying to plan all that out. You can see the cards. You're like, okay, I can try to arrange these things. So you're trying to arrange these multiple configurations to score all these different cards in a most efficient way. And there's also some basic scoring with how the things score. So you want to score like clumps of the mountains, which is the gray ones together, and the buildings are like the little too high with the reds on the top, and those score certain ways. And then there's a water one, and you try to score like a line of those, or you can flip the board over and score them and like dividing your thing into different regions. So there's all these different weird ways to score. And it's really fun. I like it. I will say with this one, I don't really like it with more than 2 players. With 2 players, it's a lot of fun. There's some good back and forth. You can kind of watch what the other player's doing and sort of hate draft the little tokens. But with 4 players, it's like you get set up and then like everything changes, and it's like, man, I couldn't plan for nothing. And it just, I don't know, especially with 4, there's like too much that changes between your turns, because it is a relatively tight game. You don't have like a lot of space to put the tokens down, and you're trying to score multiple cards at once. So the arrangement of those tokens is so tight, I think, which is cool. I like that. But because you're like, okay, if I put these here, I can score this one on this, and then I can score this other one that's still connected to that same stuff, but it has a whole different, configuration if I look at it from this angle, and I can score this because I, put the little token on this guy and all that stuff. And that's tricky to do. Like, it's not impossible, but it's not like easy. It's not just like a gimme. And for 2 players, this is much more fun because I can kind of do what I want, and I can kind of see like, ooh, I can take that, but I'm not going to totally screw the guy. But with 4 players, it's like, man, everything's changed. Okay, I don't. What am I doing now? And that's my thing with that one. It's really fun, but I think it's only really good at 2 players. Anyway, that's Harmonies. It's really fun at 2 players though. Don't get me wrong. Okay, enough of that. The next one we're talking about here is called Divinus. And this has come out from Lucky Duck Games, and a friend of mine picked this up, and we played through the whole base game campaign of it, which is 12 games. And it's a legacy kind of game. Reminds me most of like My City, which was that Reiner Knizia one that came out a couple of years ago. In that, it is a tile placement, basically abstract, legacy style game. Now, in My City, it was more like Tetris tiles, the polyomino type of thing. This is more like a Carcassonne style tile placement. And what you do is you sticker the tiles. And the theme of it is like kind of weak, but it's fine. It does, I think it serves the purpose to what I think is a really fun, excellent game, where it's kind of like Greek gods versus Norse gods, and the land's kind of like forming in the early firmament of the creation, you know what I mean? Like everything's kind of very abstract, and there's like demigods and different creatures that can come around, and the land's like constantly morphing and changing shape or whatever. So And then it has like an app that drives the game. The app is not optional; it's required, which I think is fine because it helps you drive it and it gives you the rule changes and all that stuff. But the app has like a narrative, which is like, you know. But again, it moves the game along and it does its job, and the gameplay is really, really neat. So what happens in the game is you roll a set of dice, and then they're just different numbers, and then there's like a display of tiles that you can buy, 1 through 12. So if I want the number 3 tile, I've got to get 2 dice that add up to 3. Now that you can also subtract. So if I had a 4 and a 1, I could say, okay, I'm playing the 4 and the 1, so 4 minus 1 equals 3. Or if I had a 1 and a 2, I could add them up. Or if I just had a dice that had a 3 on it, I can put it there. And then over the course of the games, you're going to get stickers and be able to sticker the dice. So instead of the 3, it'll say 3/6 because you'll put that little sticker on there. And when you roll that, it could be 3 or 6. Or there'll be different special abilities that'll happen and all this stuff. And then the tiles that come out will also get stickered because you're going to score different little icons on the tiles. And you have to like align them like in Carcassonne, like, you know, the water has to meet the water and the mountain has to meet the mountain and all that stuff. So there's some trickiness to the arrangement there. And eventually you will unlock, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but you'll unlock stuff that you can kind of put on your board and move around and different stuff. And those stickers that you put on there will do different things, and you'll get different little, like, let's call it quests and stuff that you can do and all that stuff. And the gameplay is really neat. Like, I loved My City, and I think this is right up there with it. It's probably a little crunchier than My City, like a little bit more, you know, up the gamer ladder, if you will. And I thought it was really excellent. Now, the one drawback here, other than the narrative, which is like, nah, it's fine. I'm not really going to hold that against it. Because, I mean, for what the game's doing mechanically, like what kind of narrative are you going to put on, you know, land tiles being different every game. So I think the narrative's okay. The stickers, they're a big problem on the dice. So we ended up having a lot of the time to get double-sided tape and use that. Because the stickers are the kind that are meant to be sticky but also removable. And it works, for us, it worked fine on the tiles. Because you'll put the sticker on like you put like a little, let's call it a little city or town or temple on there. And then after a while, like you'll trigger an event in the app, which will score you some points or whatever later in later games. And then it'll tell you to remove that sticker. And it's fine. It removes it. You won't be able to stick it on again, but it doesn't like damage the tile or anything. It comes off and it stays on, like in between multiple game sessions, shuffling tiles, stayed on. And the dice is a different story. But I will say, with the double-sided tape, it's fine. It worked. No big deal. And you don't ever like remove stickers from the dice. Once they're on there, they're on there. And they do have recharge packs, so if you want to play through the campaign again, you could do that. There is an expansion campaign. It's like 12 games. Each campaign, I think, is 12 games. And so you can get that as well and play that. But this would probably be like when I get to do my 2024 top 10 list, this would be way higher if it wasn't for that kind of component issue. As it stands, it's like hard to recommend that because like I know people are going to run into this and it's going to be a frustration. And not everybody has like double-sided sticky tape laying around, you know, and you're going to have to like go get some in the middle of your game. So just be fair warned that if you get the game, which I would recommend it, kind of, go get some double-sided sticky tape and you'll be okay. Other than that, like it's really fun. Excellent game. I can't recommend it enough, but that's a huge, huge problem. So anyway, that is Divinus. Take a look at it. Next one we're going to talk about is Arcs. This is another one that I recommend with caveats. I will say I wholeheartedly recommend the game with the base game and then that first like leaders little mini expansion. You get some extra cards that give you different like starting special abilities and stuff like that. And that we played a bunch. Love it. I really love it. Really, on the other hand, disappointed in the campaign. Yeah, and everybody in my group is as well. It's not just me. The campaign is like I don't know. It's a mess. I think it's an absolute mess. We've played the base game several times and love it, really love it. But the campaign does like too much, like taking you out of, I don't know, what makes the base game really fun. I think it just totally removes what what makes it special. And I do think that the base game, especially with the extra leaders, and I would recommend, if folks, my recommendation would be this. Let's just put it like this. I would recommend pick up the base game of Arcs and probably just go ahead and pick up that little expansion, the leaders expansion. But then play without the leaders expansion, at least, I don't know, at least twice, maybe once. But then you'll kind of get the flow of the game and stuff. And then those leaders will kind of tweak and break the game a little bit. And then so you'll have that little thing. Now, to me, the expansion just totally blows the game up and makes it not fun. It just, and it could have been just the we only played through the campaign once, and it could have just been like particular aliens that we chose or something. I don't know, but it's not. None of us want to go back to it. But I would really recommend the base game with the expansion. Again, it's just funky enough and interesting enough. It reminds me of like Cosmic Encounter, but with like this whole mucky engine underneath it. Not just pure negotiation and trickery and whatever that kind of stuff you want to say. It's got the whole trick taking aspect to it and some funny interactions with the combat and the area control and all those kinds of things. And it's a lot of fun. And once you introduce those leaders, that's where the kind of Cosmic Encounter stuff comes in, where you got this really kind of, I think, really well executed kind of game breaking special abilities, asymmetrical powers that make it really interesting and fun. Once you get the hang of kind of the cadence and the flow and the timing of things and how kind of the order of operations from a strategic point of view works with just the base game. Because it is a little bit like counterintuitive in terms of like, okay, do I want to defend areas or stretch out and do combat? Or what types of combats do I want to do? How the raids work versus how straight up combat works and that kind of. And what's important, how you score the different goals, because in the game you choose the goals. I'm not going to explain much of the rules here because there's like 100 videos about it, but you choose like the different achievements or whatever they're called, and then you try to score those and try to piggyback on those. And how that kind of works together is very unique and different. And there's not like a lot of games like it that work that way. So I think you want to get the hang of that and then introduce the leaders, and then you kind of throw the great game breaking around it. And I do think after you've played the base game a few times, you're going to want those leaders too, because I think that sort of cycle, the treadmill of just the base game, will get old after a while. And I think those leaders spice it up enough that that's where the tons of replayability is going to come from there. But yeah, I mean, I recommend it. But man, that expansion was just all over the place, and it was just the reason I didn't like it. My friends thought there were some balance issues as well, but I also thought, I was like, well, the thing for me is it was making me play a game I didn't want to play. It was so like ass backwards from what I should be doing. Some of the goals and stuff that was like, why are you making me do this? And I don't get to play the game, and these other guys are getting to do this, and they're still playing the game. But now I have to go do this other stupid stuff I don't want to do. Like, I still want to play Arcs, but now I'm playing some other weird variant that wasn't tested. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't, but it just feels like that, And I'm not saying like nobody did their job or they swap it out. None of those kind of, I'm not trying to make any kind of attacks or anything, but it's just how it felt, trying to figure out the game. And I was like, man, this is making me do stuff that I was excited to do, but now it's making me do these other things. I was like, this is no fun. Anyway, that's Arcs. That might still show up in my top 10. Because like I said, I still like the base game quite a bit. So, next game is going to be SETI. This is a new game from CGE. This is another one that I think could be up at the top of the list for my games of the year. I don't know if it'll replace Robin Hood. I need to play it more, okay? I've only played it 3 and 4 player. And really loved it. I think it's great. It's one of those where like, I wanted to like Evacuation, which I think they came out with last year, which had kind of a space theme. and it was about like evacuating Earth to live on another planet and stuff. And I really wanted to like how those mechanisms, intertwined and stuff. But that one fell flat for me. This one does not. This, if I could describe this one quickly, it's kind of Ark Nova, Underwater Cities esque kind of game, sort of. The card play stuff is very important, but it's not as important as those games. The stuff on the board in this case is more important than the cards, but it feels like one of those card game, board game combos. And I like it for that. It kind of sets it apart from those games. And like terraforming Mars and stuff. To me, the way that you deal with so what it is, you search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and you have these like orbiting, spinning solar system planets and asteroids, kind of like a Last Light where it has the rotating board, and so you're sending these probes out and you're trying to catch orbits and get them to certain parts of the board, because like Earth is always pointed one direction, the night sky, so to speak, because you don't want to point it at the sun. You don't want to send the probe into your sun, but then you can send it out and then catch orbits, and then you kind of widen the technology of your little probes and then your satellites that are on Earth, and you scan the planets in the solar system for like remains of aliens. Like, so because when I first played again, I'm like, why are they scanning Mars or Jupiter for aliens? Like, why? But they're like, oh no, it's like looking for some like artifact that was left by some civilization. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like that could be, that could be a real thing. I don't think so, but it's neat in the context of the game. And then you're scanning like the distant night sky, and everybody's scanning it together. So it's almost like a little area control thing where you like put your little discs in different sectors, and once you scan it enough, it'll unlock through the combination of all these actions, like these 2 hidden aliens. I think that comes with 5, so you don't know which one you're gonna see. So it could be one of these possible 5, and it's so easy for them to come out with an expansion. It would just be like an alien pack, be a few aliens that you could add into the mix. So you scan those, and then you unlock those, and you flip them. There's a whole step when you reveal them, and then you can just kind of directly kind of interact with them, and they introduce new cards in the game. And it's almost like you play one game, you unlock one alien, then that adds a bunch of, not a ton, but like, enough special rules that you're playing a different game. And then you go further along and you unlock the final alien, then you're playing a completely different game at that point. Not completely different. And just the way that everything kind of interacts with the players, because you're trying to sort of, get your probes out first and land the probes on either like the planets or the different moons of the planets. And, there's some real good interaction in this game with players kind of vying for control sort of on different places, but also kind of working together. There's a whole, the brinkmanship concept of like, oh, he started scanning here, so if I jump on there, that one's probably going to get filled. Or do I try to get over here where I'm going to get the majority, but like if nobody helps me fill it, then it's not going to get fully scanned. So there's some kind of working back and forth there, which is fun. There's technologies that you can upgrade. You've got a player board. You can upgrade your tech so you can do more at once. And there's a bunch of cards that you can get. You kind of try to fulfill these. And it's a very important part of the game. The cards are very, very important, but they're not the main focus. Like if Ark Nova and Underwater Cities, the cards is like 80% the focus, let's say, 20% the board. Maybe with Ark Nova, it's like 70-30. Then this is probably like 60-40 the board versus cards, something like that. You know what I mean? Hard to quantify, but that's a cool aspect of it. And it's just really neat mechanically. Now, I will say, game is excellent 3 to 4 player. Actually let some friends of mine borrow it. They're a couple, and so they played it 2 player. And it kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, I don't know how this would work 2 player. And they confirmed it's like, okay, 2 player, but it's not that great. And if you go on BGG, there's a bunch of variants as well. People trying to figure it out. I'm kind of like, why didn't they tweak? It feels like there's a couple of simple things they could do to tweak it. So, we'll see. And I do want to try it solo as well. I haven't had a chance to try it solo, which looks interesting, but, I don't know. I think if there's already a problem with 2 player, maybe there's even more of a problem with the solo. We'll see. But as it stands, I think it's a really, really great 3 to 4 player game for sure. All right, that's SETI. Next one, we'll get into some of these that are a little bit older actually, and then come back to some new ones. Next one is called Nokuso Dice. And this is a game I think is a couple of years old. This is a trick-taking game, in air quotes, from Japan. I have a friend of mine in the group who is always on the lookout for, there's always a good handful of small, they're not always trick-taking games, but a lot of times they are small little games that come out of Japan, very limited print run. They probably print, 500 to 1,000. And sometimes they have English rules, sometimes they don't. And this is a really good one. This is trick-taking, but with dice. So you have a hand of cards, and they're like different suits and colors and numbers. But you also have a bunch of dice that you roll up that have the similar colors or suits and numbers. So if we roll up a bunch of dice after being dealt like a hand of 10 cards, and then people draft the dice, and they put the dice in front of them. So if I have a 6 blue and a yellow 2, that I have effectively in my hand, quote unquote, a yellow 2 and a 6 blue as a card. But you just know I have it. And I can play that die during the trick to try to take the trick or whatever. And what happens is the die that is left, there's always one die left in the pool, that becomes trump. So if I have a red 3, not only is red a trump, but 3s are trump. And the biggest trump is the red 3, because somebody has the red 3 card in their hand too. So that die's left, and that becomes trump. So the biggest trump is the red 3. Then after that, all the 3s are equal. So no matter what color, red, blue, yellow, green. And then after that, all the reds going from 0, I think there's a 0. Yeah, 0 to, or 1 to 7 is the highest. Those are the next trumps in that order. Like the lowest trump is a, 1 red, and the highest is a 7 red. But the 3 red always beats it because it's like the main trump. And so then you play that. And then at the end of the round, everybody's going to have one die left. You have to keep a die left. You can't ever use your last die. And whatever the number is on the die, that's your bid, kind of retroactively for the round. So if I have a 3 yellow or whatever, then I want to win exactly 3 tricks. Now, each trick you win gives you a point no matter what. But if you hit it, if you hit the exact bid, then you get bonus points based on how many other people didn't get their bid. So in a 4-player game, I think it plays 3, 4, or 5 in this game. So we played a 4-player game, and then I'm the only one to hit my bid. So I think I get 10 points for each other player. I don't have the rules in front of me, but it's something like that. So you get a lot of points if you're the only one to hit your bid. And if 2 people hit their bid, I think they each get 20 points because of the other 2 that don't. And then there's also a black die. You throw in 2 black dice that have no numbers on them. And if you take one of those in the draft, they're always in the draft, you discard one of the other dice, and that's basically effectively saying you're going to get 0 tricks. And it's the same thing. If you don't, if you get your tricks, then you get a bunch of points. I think you get a little bit of a bonus if it's the 0. Can't remember. But that's the game. And you just play a couple of hands, and it is fantastic. I love it. So cool. I can't recommend it enough, but I don't think you can get it anywhere. So if there's ever a reprint or you can find one secondhand, I really recommend Nokuso Dice. It was a lot of fun. We all really, really liked it quite a bit. So that's Nokuso Dice. Next one is Windmill Valley. I believe this is a 2024 release. This is by, what is it? They did Teotihuacan and some other of those games. The publisher's having a brain fart with, but this is cool. I like this Windmill Valley thing. This is a big old brain burny Euro type of thing, so I'm not getting too much in the mechanics, but it has a very, I don't know, kind of a brass feel, sort of. I don't know how to explain. Board and Dice. That's what I'm trying to think of the publisher name. It's funky. Like there's a lot of moving parts to this game, so I could see that kind of turning people off because it's like, okay, I'm playing this little game in front of me, and there's a game on the board, and there's another game over here, and there's a lot of little things. But I think they all come together really nicely. You have these kind of spinning wheel things, kind of like Barrage, but completely different, where you get your actions with these 2 interlocking cog things, which works well. I don't know. At first I was like, I don't know about this game, but by the end of it, I was like, this is fantastic. May not get a review of this. I don't actually have a copy, but maybe I can rustle one up somewhere. And I need to play it again too. I've only played it the one time, but it's fantastic. I think it's great. It's a brain burner. There's a lot of stuff. So basically, it's like Tulip Mania during that time period with the tulip market and the crash and everything. And you're trying to get these different colored tulips, and you grow different ones. And there's a little like kind of like a route thing on the main board where there's like little pathways where you can sort of plant your little farms and stuff to get little bonuses. I'm using those terms really lightly when I say like route and stuff, but there is some like interesting consideration there with how you build stuff out, and you kind of piggyback off each other too, the way the way that it works. So it's like a person will put like a little windmill on the map, and now that's kind of unlocked like some other stuff beyond it. So you're kind of waiting for people to do that. It's all brinkmanship stuff. That's the brass stuff that kind of reminds me of that. But there's also some like supply and demand market stuff going on with the different like types of tulips, because there's like different colored ones, and there's little like bonuses that you can do if you can kind of time your productions right. But you've got like a storage aspect to it, because it's very easy to like produce them, but you have to actually like put them somewhere and plant them somewhere. I don't know. There's a lot going on, and I really recommend it. Anybody likes these big old nasty crunchy euros, I think this is a good one. I think it could seem clunky. I think though, in my opinion, after you play it, you'll be like, okay, this sucker has a lot going on. It's got some really cool stuff happening, and I recommend it. And I hope to get some more plays of it and maybe do a review of it, because this is another one I think could show up in my my top 10 somewhere. Maybe very high. Like I said, I got to play it again. I got to see how it shakes out. So that's Windmill Valley. And next one, I got two more. Next one is not from this year. I think it's from last year. Is the White Castle. And I remember everybody raving about this. And I just, I was like, I don't know. It looks very abstract to me. It looks fine. I'm sure it's good. And it is really, really good. I kind of regret missing it. So we played that and almost went out and bought my own copy right away. I don't know about solo for this game. I don't know how enjoyable it would be. There's already a couple copies floating in the group, so I don't know how important it is to have one. But and like I said, you may not get a review of this one. It's a little old anyway, so who cares? But this is an amazing game. It's great. It's weird because I thought it was like a worker placement game, but it's really like a dice game. Like a dice placement game. I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Just like Joel likes it too. A lot of people I remember really liking it last year. Like I said, I was like, oh sure, it looks great. It's abstract with dice. I'm sure the mechanics are fun, but it works. Like it's cool. Like it's just more than that. It's fun. It's really clever the way you can place dice and like try to trigger as many actions from one thing as you can. Basically, is the game. It's like, how can I squeeze out every last possible little bonus action out of this thing? Yeah, and it's a simple dice game, but it's very simple at the end of the day. But it's very, there's a lot of layers and barriers to get into. I wouldn't like say this is a, whatever, medium gateway game or something. There's a ton of crap going on, but once you kind of ingest all that, it's like, oh, okay, I got it. This is fun. I haven't tried the expansion. Some friends have the expansion. That looks like it just has a whole bunch of extra stuff, a whole new sets of dice. I think I would just have to recommend it. I just wanted to give it a shout out because it was really fun, and I was sad that I didn't get to play it last year, because then I would have put it on my top 10 list. Anyway, it's good. I highly recommend it. So that was the quick one, and then one more to go here. This is going to be another one. Okay, looks like I'm right at about an hour here. This is Fromage, and I love this game. This is going to be high up on my top 10 list. Not at the top, probably. It's not going to replace Robin Hood for sure, but I really like this game. Fromage is excellent. And I've played it at all the player counts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I played online, I played it in person, and I like it in all the ways. And I would say if you haven't tried it, go on Board Game Arena and try it. It has every mode for it. You can even play like all the different solo modes on there. I kind of like playing the physical version just because it's a little bit more. It's a very tactical, touchy, game. Go watch a review on it. I'll be doing a review of this at some point because I love it. And it has this board that rotates. So each turn you're playing like a different game. So it's like a big wedge. So I'm like, oh, I'm playing the Area Connect game. And then the board rotates. And it's like, oh, I'm playing the Area Control game. And the board rotates. Oh, I'm playing the game where like set collecting. But you're building these different types of cheeses. And when you put the worker down, the worker may not come back to you because as the board rotates, when the worker points back to you or is facing you, then you get it back. So you might get it back right away. It might be a couple of turns. So you're trying to time that. And there's like these little special abilities that you can draft, and you can generate things, and you get like free cheese out onto this board. It's just really cool. It's hard to describe on a podcast, but like I said, this is 100% going to get a review for me at some point. I think this is like Spiel des Jahres shoo-in to me. Like if this doesn't win some Spiel des Jahres type of thing, who do I have to make a phone call to? Because come on, this game's excellent. Like it's cool. The one thing that I like about it is the basic game without any kind of like special ability drafting or anything. I think you can play that several times, and I played that several times. I've only played the drafting tiles thing twice, and I've had a lot of fun with that, and I'd still play that now. So I think you can play it, like ease into it and really stage in the complexity and kind of the cognitive load and stuff. Like similar to what I was talking about with Arcs before, the base game's really good, but then you throw in that drafting of the tiles because you can build these like buildings on your own player board, and you draft those and you can replace what's printed there with other stuff. So you can set yourself up for these kind of like cool little kind of game breaking combos. And that's cool. That's going to add like a ton of special abilities and replayability and all that stuff. Yeah, I can't recommend Fromage enough. I think everybody should go out and buy that one. It's like, even though Jester Robin Hood is probably going to be my number one, I can't recommend that to everybody. You know what I mean? Because it's, you know what I mean? Like, there's something about Fromage where it's like, you can break this out with grandma. You can break this out with your 10-year-old. You know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. It's got that kind of cross appeal. And I think for me, I mean, I've only played it with like my quote unquote gamer friends, and we all love it. You know what I mean? It's good. And it's not like one of these, I don't know. We're going to get into stupid territory here in a second, but it's like, it's not a filler. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? I love fillers. This filler's not a derogatory term. Nobody says filler's a derogatory term. Who says that? I don't know. I hear people say like, everybody uses filler as a derogatory term. I'm like, who? Some guy in BGG? Who cares? Some guy posting on a forum? I mean, people that know what they're talking about don't do that. If somebody says filler is a bad word, then you don't know what you're talking about. Don't listen to that person. But this is there. Like, I mean, it's easy. Like, it's easy breezy to play. Now, it's not like easy breezy to just go and you're just going to win by happenstance. You got to think through stuff. But it's easy. Like, you get the board. I'm like, okay, I want to make this cheese. I want to make the blue cheese or the white cheese or the yellow cheese. And maybe use this bonus space to get some extra cards or some extra cows so I can activate my board. Okay, cool. Next. Okay, I can do this. Oh, I can do this. And it kind of will teach you how you should play it by playing it, because it's easy to play. Like, it's easy to do the thing. So the game's going to teach you by doing it how to be good at it. You know what I mean? Like, the game presents the information in such a way that you can go, okay, I should be trying this. And maybe it won't work as well as what Billy does, but I'm going to be able to get it. I think the game presents itself in that way. Where like Robin Hood is like, you got to like scratch around it and be familiar with games and like meta concepts. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be into games to do it. Whereas this is just going to present itself in a way that you can go, okay, let me eat this for a little, and then, I'll get it eventually. So, all right. That is Fromage, and that is the podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. And I appreciate any feedback on the whole JRPG thing, if you're interested in that at all. Yeah, so look for some reviews here coming out first of the year, and it's good to be back. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good Happy New Year. Thank you.